Hi, hello. Welcome to the live Q&A series for team management and leadership skills development. Yes, okay, we're live. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. It's a very exciting topic today, so feel free. Again, jump in, ask your questions, make your comments, your suggestions, even you can ask your questions for next time as well, right? Because remember, we do this live Q&A series. We do it every Tuesday and Thursday. Today, it's an hour earlier than usual because normally I go live at 11:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But today was special because of my schedule. So I was thinking, I'd rather still do this than not. So here I am. Okay, so ask your questions at any point, and make your comments. So today's question is, how do I motivate a multi-generational team? So I talked to some team leaders this comes from a leader in a large organization that inherited this team, and more than just that, so that's a team that is made of people who are in the boomer generation, also Generation X, also Generation Y or millennials, and they're spread across different cities as well. So, okay, we have somebody on LinkedIn watching. Thanks for watching. Ask your questions, make your comments. Okay, so how do I motivate a multi-generational team, right? This is especially if you are Gen Xer and you have people who are boomers and also millennials. What do you do? Right? Because they have different styles. There will be different things that matter for them, right? There will be different approaches that they have and also different levels of experience. So let's start and let's see, first of all, what we are talking about here. And I love this definition of a team from Simon Sinek. A team is not a group of people who work together. A team is a group of people who trust each other, right? And this is the thing. That's why we want to learn how to manage a team properly. Because when we do that, the level of trust grows. But how do we make that happen? So that's important. That's what this is all about. That's where the frustration comes from, when I don't know what motivates these people. But talking about motivation, what is motivation? Again, I can't say this enough. I think for those of you who have known me for a while, because I worked in international law firms for more than 15 years, I learned that we need to define things before we start talking about them. So when we talk about motivation, here's the definition. Motivation is the process that initiates, guides, and maintains goal-oriented behaviors. I think this is good to know anyway, given the times that we live in, right? More than that, it is what causes you to act, whether it is getting a glass of water to reduce thirst or reading a book to gain knowledge, right? So again, that goal-oriented approach. So when we talk about behaviors, when we talk about goals, we can definitely understand that motivation is strongly connected to what? To our personal values, to our beliefs, to our experiences growing up, to the way that we got used to both learning and working. Because here's the thing, and this is why I say, first of all, that it's all personal, nothing is just business. Because if you think about it, mostly all of the behaviors that we have and the way that we do things, right, they will be strongly connected to personal values, beliefs, experiences. And why I said learning and working styles is because of this. How do we... Oh, Stefano, it's good to have you here. Good morning. Ask your questions. Okay. So here's why learning and working styles are related, because we actually learn how to work in school, right? I mean, think about it. Those 12 years of learning, that is our work, right? From grade 1 to grade 12, not to mention college, university, and anything else, right? So that is so much ingrained in the way that we learn how to do our work, right? So our learning and working styles are actually mostly one and the same, because this is, and based on personal values, beliefs, and experiences, this is very much part of our habits. This is very much part of what we learned to do for 12 plus years. And this is what we take with us in our working environment, right? So, talking about that, here's what motivates generations in both learning and working, right? And you will see the connection. I mean, I'm sure it's very easy to see that connection between the way that people used to learn and also learning, looking at it at the kind of informal learning that we do, right? Because we don't stop learning, actually, right? I love to say that learning is a habit. It's not an event that we go to or a location that we go to, right? So, but it's very much a habit. So this is why it matters so much in our working style. And here's what baby boomers are motivated by. And here's why that matters so much when you talk about talking to a team that is a multi-generational team. So for baby boomers, first of all, learning is a privilege, because not everybody, again, you go back to the generation of people who are now in their 60s, 70s, right? Those are the boomers. So think about back then, not everybody was able to go and learn, or they would be going to school, but maybe not everybody would be going to high school or college, right? So learning was a privilege. Working and having a good job, having a good job from individual, that depends on each individual's perspective, but that's a privilege as well in that generation's perception. Again, we're talking about perceptions, right? So the format, and now think about it, the format that they used to learn in is classroom-based only. There was no internet, there was no online, nothing, right? So everything was classroom-based. So obviously, they prefer the office as the environment for working, which has had, guess what? A tremendous impact right now for those of them who are still in the workforce right now, because there's a lot of them who are still working. And then think about learning methods. It was books and teamwork, right? Because you would be in that classroom environment and you would be talking to your colleagues. It's the same thing when they took that in their working environment, right? So books and teamwork, they need that connection. They need that communication with their peers so that they feel that they communicate well and that they work well and that they're part of a team. And the way they experienced feedback was through exams, right? It wasn't because the teacher was the authority. So you wouldn't have this one-on-one feedback conversations and chit chats about what goes well, what goes wrong, what you can improve, and so on, right? So feedback was the exam. So this is why, and I'll think about maybe you have people who are baby boomers in your team, not necessarily the team that you're managing, but the team that you're working with. So think about how they give feedback, if they do, and think about how they receive feedback when that happens. Feedback is a little bit of a tough chew for baby boomers, right? Because they needed the exam and they needed the authority to say, this is good, this is bad, you need to still work on this because this is a no-no. This is not good enough for now. And that's it. Now look at the difference between baby boomers and Generation X, right? Big difference already. Generation X, people, this is my generation, people who are in their 40s, 50s right now, for them, learning was necessary. And if you're in your 40s or 50s, early 50s, you probably heard your parents who are baby boomers say, you have to learn, you want a good job, you need to go to school and you need to have good grades. You have to learn well. You have to go to college. You have to go to get a university degree if you want to get a good job. That might be one thing that you've heard from your parents. So perception on learning is that it is necessary. What we did when we went into the workforce, we said, oh yeah, working is necessary because the Generation X is the generation that went to the bank, got themselves a credit to buy the house, to buy the car, to buy everything. So they are a generation that are very much in debt. So obviously working was necessary, right? Learning was necessary to get a good job. And then the good job was necessary to get that level of living that you wanted to get and that the parents wanted you to get. So that was necessary, right? But the format was blended. And not just because of e-learning, but if you remember back in the 90s, 80s, 90s, late 80s and 90s, there were a lot of courses on TV. So this is the generation that is very much related to TV, and especially I call it the MTV generation because that's when like MTV was a big thing back then. And that's where you would be getting your music from. So a lot of more methods of study. So e-learning, TV courses, and a lot of self-study. And that's why you get a lot of Gen Xers who study on their own, who just want to improve, and they read books, they go to courses, they enroll themselves to coaching and all of that sort of stuff. Again, think about that this generation is now, if you look at 40s, late 50s, they are also in those top executive levels, some of them. So if you look at their way of learning and working, it's very much self-study and self-improvement. The way that they received and feedback was a lot through criticism. And you can see that, and that's where the gap can be with the millennial generation. And we're going to talk about millennials in a minute. So Generation X is very much, when they talk about feedback, they talk about criticism. They don't think about feedback as something positive. And this is why I think we've had a very bad influence on feedback in organizations, because when people hear about feedback, they cringe a little bit because of that, because mostly Generation X perceive feedback as criticism. When they hear somebody say, I want to give you a piece of feedback, they think immediately that something's wrong. And it doesn't have to be this way. I might even have feedback for you telling you, hey, I really loved how you handled that tough situation yesterday. And that's positive feedback. But Generation X is not used to that. They were getting a lot of criticism because why? The facilitator, and you can bring the facilitator in the working environment and they become the leader. And the facilitator in the working environment, the teacher, right? They were the competence, not the authority, maybe not the only authority, because they would have e-learning and TV learning and they would get information from more sources now. But they were competent. They went through school, they had their diplomas, their certifications. That's why they could teach. Then the leaders, the managers in the organizations, the same perception that Generation X had. You do the work, you get your certifications, all of the diplomas, everything needed, and you're a competence in that area, in that field, right? So that is the perception of Generation X about the leader. And now let's talk millennials. So millennials or Generation Y, they're people who are now in their 30s, late 30s to 40s, right? Even late 20s to 40s. And to them, the perception on learning, that's available. And because learning was available, because they got a lot of other platforms, right? So we're talking about huge explosion of all of the learning environments, the rise of massive online open courses. You can take a course from any university in the world and it's online and you can still get a certificate from them. So it was just a matter of you knowing what you want to learn and looking for that, because learning was available. Now, when it comes to working, you can see, and now it maybe becomes more clear why the workplace, why this generation transformed the workplace so much. Because if learning is available, so is working. Right? And the format can be experiential. That's what they did. And they tried and tested and they came up with new ideas and new ways of doing things. They innovated a lot and they brought all of the virtual and social and global approaches that they were used to from school, right? Because if learning, formal or informal, is available to me, why wouldn't work be the same? And this is where you see all of the small business owners, all of the founders, CEOs, especially in tech, but not only, who started to form smaller organizations that were based on social, virtual, global impact. And you can see that. But that explains why, right? And look at feedback. They grew up because Generation X would be very focused on criticism when they receive feedback, and then millennials, they wanted something different. So they wanted to bring positive reinforcement. And I think you've seen that a lot, and we've experienced that a lot in recent years, and especially in the way that millennials even brought this way of giving and receiving feedback into their personal lives, and with the rise of parenting. We never heard about parenting. I, as a Generation Xer, and much less the boomers, we never heard about parenting the way that it's augmented and highlighted today. Because the millennials brought everything that they grew up with, and they wanted to enhance and develop it further. So they brought positive reinforcement. And here's the thing, if you are as a facilitator, they brought the model of the teacher as a coach into the workplace. And so the leader of team of millennials, they perceive it as a coach. So the leader is not the authority anymore. It's not the only competence on the team, but the leader is the person who can coach the others. And that means develop others, bring them forward, highlight their talents and their strengths, and help them get better, as well as the leader themselves. So a good coach is the one who can teach, is the one who can mentor, and is the one who doesn't impose his or her will, but is the one that brings everybody together and understands how everybody works well and makes it a team effort and pushes everybody in the front depending on what needs to be done. This is why leadership has changed so much in recent years, with this balance between competence and coaching, where you get Generation X that are in those levels of top executive levels, and millennials coming and following, and also coming from top executive levels in startups or in small businesses, and changing this leadership environment, right? So right now, we're at that level where a good leader has this balance of competence and coach, between being a competent and in a competence in the field, and also a good coach for the team. And plus, if you have people in Generation X, these are in their early 20s, people who were born after 1995, basically, and they just start to come into the workforce. Now look at this. So to them, learning was pretty much everywhere, right? And that is what working is going to be all about. That's why I keep saying, and if you are leading organizations or businesses right now, just know that most likely the workforce environment will change, in that it's not going to be a matter of who you work for, but a matter of who you work with. Because look at what Generation Z is used to having. So learning for them is everywhere. They learn from YouTube, people, right? So that kind of explains a lot. They Google and they go on YouTube and they search for videos whenever they want to learn something new. They want to learn the how to do it, right? So for them, learning is everywhere, and so is working. It has to be purposeful, because again, I learn when I need to learn how to do something. That's when I want to learn. That's where you hear a lot of Gen Zs talking about the fact that school doesn't serve the purpose anymore and that something needs to be done. So for them, it has to be purposeful. I have to learn how to talk. Okay, purposeful, right? And if you've had the chance of interviewing a Gen Z, well, let me tell you, one of the questions that they're going to ask you, whether you're a large or small organization, is how do you want to impact the world? What are you doing for the environment? What are you doing to be eco-friendly? What are you doing? What is your vision? What is your mission? And how is that impacting the world that's outside your organization? How's that? I never asked that question when I went on an interview. So, right? The methods were mobile, personalized, gamified, right? They learn a lot from games. And I know everybody does right now, but they grew up with that. And for them, look at this. Feedback is a dialogue. And they were used to that. So it's not just positive reinforcement, because they can be very critical, but it's a dialogue. So I say something, you say something, and pretty much this is what feedback has to be, really. So this is a blend, right? They took the criticism and the positive reinforcement and they made it a dialogue. And the facilitator is one of us because they don't learn just in school, right? Again, they learn from YouTube, from TikTok, from Instagram, from all over the place, from their peers. They learn from people who are like them. So to them, the leader, a good leader, is one of us. That's why I say to summarize our discussion today. So if you have a multi-generational team, but not just a multi-generational team, because looking at this, that pretty much gives you the image of how you can be a great leader, not just a good leader, but a great leader. You have to have authority when it comes to solving a crisis situation or when it comes to defending your team or your organization against something externally that comes and threatens you, right? Against external danger, let's say. You have to be competent, right? You have to have the knowledge and the skills to be there. You have to also know how to be a good coach for the team so that you spot their talents and you understand how they're good at what they do and encourage that. And you have to be also one of them. And this is where I see a lot of leaders making the mistake of thinking that, hey, if I'm a leader, I'm not part of the team. I'm here and the team is here and they just need to follow me. No, you have to be part of the team because Generation Z is coming into the workforce and you have to be one of them as well. And that's how you can also coach your team and give the positive reinforcement that the millennials need and also give the criticism that Gen Xers need. And also use the authority that baby boomers like having in the team. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this session. Check the links in the description of the video because you can ask your question. So whatever you question about people skills and team management, leadership skills, management skills, whatever your question is, put it in there. You can also catch the replays because you're going to get them once you submit your question. Or you can book a call with me and let's see what helps you in solving some of the problems that you might be having or challenges that you might be having. Another option that I want to share with you is for you to join the Lead for Legacy League. We already started, so this is a global online program for management and leadership development. So what we do is we have assessments, and we talked about assessments, personality and work styles. We talked about that last time. So go grab that replay in the link in the description. We also discuss strategies for you and your team. We have weekly group coaching, Q&As, discussions, and you have access to a library of online courses depending what it is that you're struggling with and that you want to learn now, talking about learning and perceptions of learning. So there's a blend and mix of ways in which you can learn. But the most powerful thing is that this is a group coaching community, and you get that feedback and you get that input and brainstorming from people like you from all over the world. So come join us, and if not, check the links and catch the replays and ask your questions here. And I'll see you on Thursday at 11:30 for another live Q&A series for team management and leadership skills development. Until then, have a great rest of your day and week. Bye.